Unspoken Issues.
What's next on the list there, Chris?
Daredevil Batman.
That's me.
That's you.
At least I remember that one.
That is correct.
So Eye for an Eye is what this is titled, okay? And I'm going to throw out some names here, and you might recognize a few.
A little inconsiderate.
Considering he's blind. I get
Yeah.
it. Daredevil.
You know what they should have called it?
Tell me.
Blind as a bat.
Oh my gosh, how did they miss that? How did they miss it?
It's not marketing malfeasance on the level of not calling Fast X Fast 10 your seatbelt.
Fast 10 your seatbelt. Yes. And okay. All right. Anyway, Eye for an Eye, story by DG Chichester, pencils by Scott McDaniel, inks by Derek Fisher, and colors by one friend of the show, Gregory Wright. Yes. Letter by Bill Oakley, and enhancement by Digital Chameleon, and design Comic Crafts John Marsigan. All right. Now this issue crossover on the shelves January 29th, 1997. And just to kind of give you a small history, not as involved as we did with the previous creative team, but DG Chichester, this is actually very late, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, very late in his career. His last issue credited on Mike's Amazing World is Batman 80-page giant number 2 in 1999. So he has no credits after 1999. His last Marvel work, because the hype for this was the fact that they were getting the Daredevil team from Fall from Grace back together. Mm-hmm. That was the hype for this. But his last Marvel work prior to this was adapting the movie Strange Days.
Oh, wow.
For Marvel, which I don't even... What was Strange Days?
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Let's see what the old IMDb says about
Tell me.
Oh, no.
Angela
Rafe
Bassett.
finds and Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
A cop turned street hustler accidentally uncovers a conspiracy in Los Angeles in 1999. This was in 1995 when we were all convinced the world was going to end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Rafe finds Angela Bassett, Juliette Lewis, Tom Sizemore, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Okay.
Not Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
William Fichtner, but William Fichtner's in 43% of all movies that have been produced in the 20th and 21st centuries.
All right. So, yeah, so that was his last Marvel work, adapting the movie Strange Days in October 95. But in May of 95, a few months earlier, is his exit from Daredevil with issue 342. So there's DG Chichester for you. Now, Scott McDaniel, this team, like I said, had been together for most of their Daredevil run up to issue 336. But by August of 1996, shortly prior to this issue hitting the shelves, Scott McDaniel's working on Nightwing, and he starts with Nightwing number 1, and he has a run on that series, so he's on there for quite a while.
This was also the creative team on one of the Amalgam books, Assassins.
The one you just did?
Well, but I actually plugged that on a totally different episode. So that's why I introduced it like it was something we hadn't talked about.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, that one was one of the main characters was an amalgam of Deathstroke and Daredevil minus a Y chromosome and minus pants.
Oh goodness. All right then. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead. Let me just ask either one of you. I guess we'll start with Chris here. Did you pick this one up off the shelf at all back in 97? Yeah, January of 97. Daredevil Batman.
So around the time these crossovers were happening, I missed a lot of them because I think at the time I didn't live anywhere near a comic shop. Occasionally we would drive to the bigger town that had a mall that had comic shops and stuff. I was able to get all the Marvel vs. DC books. Most of these crossovers I would pick up after I'd moved closer to a regular comic shop that I could visit every week, and I would find them in back issue bins and stuff like that.
Okay.
Now, Batman Daredevil, I had a copy of years and years ago. I didn't even realize there was a Daredevil Batman until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I saw that Scott McDaniel was the artist, who I'm a big fan of. And I just kind of flipped out and quickly ordered a copy online and got it. So I'd never read it until just a few years ago. I did not even know this one existed. I knew about the other one. I've had it for probably 20 years or more, but didn't know this one existed until fairly recently.
This was something that they did. Didn't like the company that was publishing it was the one that would do 2 parts of a story or 2 stories separately. Like, hey, I want to do Batman Daredevil. DC's going to publish it. And then the other one's going to be Daredevil Batman, and Marvel's going to publish it.
Right. And there would be contract creative teams from each. Like Marvel has Chichester and McDaniel, which I guess McDaniel would have been on a DC book at this point. But
true.
Like Mark Bagley did the Spider-Man Batman book, and that was the one that Marvel published.
I thought they were doing a lot of exclusives at that point.
Did you have any experience with it before until we started reading it for this?
Yeah, I bought it when it came out. I'm trying to think which shop I was going to at that point, because I would have been just finishing up high school. But I did buy this one when it came out, and I didn't know until years later that the Batman Daredevil one existed.
Oh, wow. I don't think I've read either one of these. So, yeah, until I read this one tonight. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get into the story. Here we go. In the dark and gritty streets of Gotham, Batman is on the trail of a stolen piece of bleeding edge technology, a neural net developed by Wayne Tech. The culprit behind the theft is none other than the notorious Two-Face. Meanwhile, in New York City, a series of tech crimes have resulted in the disappearance of advanced technologies. Daredevil, the guardian of Hell's Kitchen, is deep in the sewers investigating these crimes when he unexpectedly encounters Batman. Misunderstanding each other's intentions, the two heroes clash until they realize they are both pursuing the same goal. Elsewhere, Two-Face and Mr. Hyde. Is it Mr. Hyde? Is that his villain name is Mr. Hyde?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think there's
Calvin Zabo just sounds like an accountant.
I feel like it's the first time I've ever read with anything with Mr. Hyde in it. So, Two-Face and Mr. Hyde. Go ahead.
He's been around for a while, and I think he usually is primarily a Daredevil villain.
Daredevil villain, yeah. So they are engaged in a ruthless heist at an arcade sales and service shop where they brutally murder a worker. It is revealed that Matt Murdock, Daredevil's alter ego, and Harvey Dent, who would become Two-Face, actually attended the same law school and were once friends. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a shared universe. Above the Manhattan skyline, Batman and Daredevil ponder their next move and discuss the tragic transformation of Harvey Dent into the villainous Two-Face. Daredevil holds on to the hope that some humanity remains within Harvey, but Batman is more skeptical. Determined to handle the situation alone, Batman attempts to leave Daredevil behind by speeding away in his Batmobile. Daredevil, undeterred, leaps onto the roof of the speeding vehicle. Batman slams on the brakes, sending Daredevil flying off, but the vigilante remains unfazed. In a tense standoff, Batman revs his engine as if to run Daredevil down, but at the last moment, swerves to avoid him. Now, the neural net project, as it turns out, had dire consequences for its users, causing brain deterioration, unless countered by a drug called Perceptron. In a church in Queens, Hyde and Two-Face plan to sell the stolen tech to a woman named Wendy Miro. As they compare their fractured selves, Wendy returns with an offer, but Hyde, in a fit of rage, because she offers, like, I don't even think she says, hey, I have to pay you by deposit. She's like, do you guys want cash or a deposit?
Just the mere suggestion pushes
yes!
him into a fiery rage.
A fit of rage. He grabs her and he kills her. The duo then decides to aim for an even bigger heist. So that's the plan. Batman and Daredevil arrive at the church simultaneously, where Batman informs Daredevil of the neural net's dangers. They discover a hair from Hyde at the scene, leading them to deduce that Hyde is using Perceptron to maintain his cognitive functions. However, they also realize that Two-Face is actually exploiting Hyde, using his brain to cultivate the neural net chip, intending to auction it off after removing it, which, of course, would kill Hyde in the process. So, yes, this is Two-Face's long game. He's got this neural net inside of Hyde's brain, and apparently, in order to grow this neural net, you have to, stimulate it. And so Two-Face is taking Hyde around and giving him Perceptron so he can grow this neural net without actually dying immediately. Also taking him on heists, so these thrill rides and all this adrenaline will help stimulate and grow this neural net. Wow. All right. The situation escalates when Hyde and Two-Face invade an internet cafe, folks, taking hostages. This is 1997, right? Yeah, 97. All right, interesting. Taking hostages. Batman's frontal assault is thwarted by Hyde's immense strength, but Daredevil crashes through the ceiling to even the odds. I thought Daredevil showed up first and Batman. Either way, they're both there. Batman escapes Hyde's grip. I know Batman was fighting Hyde, that's for sure. Batman escapes Hyde's grip and reveals Two-Face's plan to use Hyde as a living incubator for the neural net chip. As Two-Face threatens a hostage, Daredevil intervenes to save him, only for Hyde to go berserk and target the same hostage. Batman saves the hostage again, while Daredevil, which by the way, he's going to be in my notes, but poor Marty Tolan. That's the guy that gets he just has the worst day at this internet cafe ever.
Well, Tarantino.
Yes. Marty, it's so funny because they name him like Marty Tolan just wants to be like Tarantino. And he goes, every time he gets accosted, he's like, I just want to make movies. All I want to do is make movies. All right. Anyway, Batman saves the hostage again while Daredevil tries to reach the humanity within Two-Face by reminding him of their law school days. Harvey momentarily relents, handing Daredevil a syringe. Daredevil grabs it and injects Hyde with the syringe, which finally incapacitates him and destroys the neural net in the process. Two-Face is defeated, but he ominously declares that the only thing truly vanquished was his humanity. Harvey Dent is no more. In an epilogue, Matt Murdock attends a charity event with Foggy Nelson, where he encounters Bruce Wayne. Recognizing each other, they share a subtle acknowledgement of their dual identities. Bruce advises Matt to keep his business out of Gotham, to which Matt coyly responds, asking if Bruce is daring him. The issue concludes with this hint of mutual respect and an unspoken challenge between the two heroes. All right, Evan, you're up first here, man. What'd you think of Daredevil Batman?
I liked it pretty well. Having read this right on the heels of Assassins, a little darker and harsher than maybe I was expecting, especially when the murder of the guy at the arcade. And as if that wasn't horrible enough, Mr. Hyde's going, get an eye of his kids, Two-Face, cute girls. Maybe I'll pay him a visit sometime.
That's not good.
And then at the internet cafe, him going after the owner's wife. I don't know. I just felt like that was a little much. Or killing the fence, too. I don't know, just a little bit more brutal than I was thinking of. Then again, Daredevil's not known for playing patty cake with the Care Bears or whatever.
Right.
With the tech theme, you got to remember it's a product of its time, but it kind of reminded me of The Net with Sandra Bullock.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was like, hey, all this technology, guess what people can do with it? And I want to go back and watch that movie because I remember really liking it, but I keep thinking that will not have aged well.
Wait. Welcome to Mozart's Ghost. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I was literally I was looking for a movie to watch with my kids, and I'm like, you guys might like this, or you might think all the technology references are absolutely ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
But that's kind of what it reminded me of. Is that no problem with trying to make something topical and everything, but it almost felt like they were just like, technology, let's throw this in there. And it wasn't like a Michael Crichton situation. It was like, you know what else has technology? Video games. So I don't know, the theme of like Two-Face and Daredevil having met in law school, that's a natural.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're looking for a Daredevil villain to kind of pair with the Kingpin, obvious choice, but unless you wanted to go like with Gladiator or Melvin Potter for mental illness or whatever, Mr. Hyde's a pretty good pick. I don't know how well this represents Mr. Hyde, because my main experience with Mr. Hyde was an issue of the Hulk that Peter David wrote, just playing on the whole, oh, hey, the Hulk's fighting a guy called Mr. Hyde.
Right.
And then, of course, Kyle MacLachlan's performance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was pretty much in name only. So I'm not super familiar with the character, and the idea of Two-Face amping him up to grow the neural net, that makes sense in there. But the last one we talked about was how well Silver Surfer and Green Lantern, how well it fit all the characters in there. And this one, it's not bad, but it just kind of felt like, okay, we're doing a Daredevil and Batman crossover. Two-Face is a lawyer, Mr. Hyde, let's do technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that not bad. It works, but I don't know, just didn't seem to fit as well as the other. And the other thing, and this I've always thought, I've had periods of Daredevil fandom, and I loved Mark Waid's run on there. I remember reading it here and there. I was younger, I read through all of Bendis's stuff, just read Chip Zdarsky's run. But for some reason, I always think of Daredevil as a lot more serious. And I don't think he is. I think just a lot of the stories I've read, because like where he's like grinning and like egging Batman on and stuff, I'm like, that seems kind of out of character. And I don't think it is. I just think maybe that's not what I associate with Daredevil. Maybe you guys know more about it because where like what's that one part when they first meet and he says something like, we're both sewer diving for the same reason, am I right? Thieves and murderers. We could go after the killers together, or we can just kill each other. Guess where part of me is hoping you'll place your bet.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like the Daredevil that I think of, but maybe I'm also thinking of Charlie Cox or Ben Affleck moping around.
And at the very end of the issue is also like supports exactly what you're saying, where he's like, he looks at Batman and he's like, is that a dare? I'm like, what are you doing, Bat? Stop it.
Obviously, DG Chichester knows Daredevil. So right. If me and DG Chichester disagree on the characterization of Daredevil, I'm going to go with him.
Go with the one that has the wiki page.
It seemed odd to me, but I think I've read fewer Daredevil stories where he has that more provocative attitude.
Yeah, I think we're used to the like tortured, the guy that's the Catholic guilt, whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of guy that I'm used to as well. So you're right. I don't know much about the DG Chichester run, but I swear what I've read, I remember reading Fall from Grace, or at least one issue of it. Didn't seem like he was joking around then.
Yeah. So like I said, that just struck me as odd, but that may be just my Daredevil experience.
And now here's the other thing, though. And there may be some liberty because what's on the inside cover when they go through the explanations of who these two characters are at the very bottom. In Elseworlds, heroes are taken from their usual settings and put into strange times and places, some that have existed or might have existed and others that can't, couldn't, or shouldn't exist. The result is stories that make characters who are as familiar as yesterday seem as fresh as tomorrow. So
that's the standard Elseworlds intro for a lot of DC stuff.
Right.
I mean, it could be. You're right. That just, like I said, that's how it struck me. That's not me saying, hey, this guy who's regarded as is well known as a Daredevil writer doesn't know what he's talking about. No, it's probably me.
All right, Chris, you got the floor.
Yeah, just kind of following up on the characterization or whatever. Like, I think for a lot of people, because Frank Miller, I've never read Frank Miller's Daredevil run, but like I know how influential it was, and like for so much time, it seemed like everybody was just kind of doing a take on Frank Miller's Daredevil. Like I remember when Mark Waid finally took over with Chris Samney, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago at this point, but like by that time they had gone through the Bendis run, the Ed Brubaker run. Andy Diggle, I think, was the follow-up after that. He said he wanted to take Daredevil back to the swashbuckling superhero that he was before Frank Miller.
Okay.
So maybe that's how I kind of related these moments. This seems more like an old school Daredevil than what we had seen pretty much from the 80s on. I don't know that much about Chichester's Daredevil run specifically because I read a handful of those issues, but not the whole run. I got the same vibe that he was being a little more clever and kind of jokey almost with Batman. And maybe part of that is like, well, we can't have these guys acting the exact same. We can't have Daredevil. We can't have Frank Miller's Daredevil and Frank Miller's Batman because they're basically the same.
Batman seemed a little more stern than usual in this too.
Mm-hmm. I did notice the Elseworlds label, and I was curious about the other crossovers if that showed up on those, because this isn't even one of the DC published books. This is one of the Marvel ones, I believe.
That's
so it was
really
kind of
strange.
Yeah, I was kind of curious why that's there. And yeah, we talked about earlier that Chichester and McDaniel was the Daredevil creative team, and we've done several of those Chichester issues in the past. We covered that one single issue for an episode, and then we did the Dead Man's Hand, where several of those were Daredevil issues.
Right.
And it's just something about his style of writing. I feel like I've gotten more of a handle on it now. When I finally got this issue several years ago, I didn't really think it was that great. I like it much more today when I reread it for whatever reason. And it may be just because I've read a lot more of his stuff and I've just gotten more acclimated to his style of writing, maybe. It's really wordy.
Yes, it is.
But I liked it a lot more than I did the first time I read it. And it helps, of course, that McDaniel, who I'm a big fan of, is doing the art. And he's really kind of rounding into form around this time. Like he had just started Nightwing a few months earlier, right? So he had probably already been working on that before he went back to Daredevil here. But yeah, I like some of his older stuff. It's like you can see the bones of like what his style is developing into, but it's not quite there, and it's not quite as fluid. But this is, I think, is really strong stuff, and it's just really cool as hell to see Batman and Daredevil throw down. Because
Oh yeah.
we see Spider-Man and Wolverine. They're together 3 times a month now in Marvel Comics. Like whether it's a Spider-Man book or they're in Avengers together, or they're always together. You see them all the time. But like these Marvel and DC books, like these are a rarity, seeing these characters interact. I did think it was clever to use Two-Face and using Dent as an old pal, an old lawyer pal of Matt's. And you mentioned the Cyber Cafe, which the only other cultural reference I really have for Cyber Cafes is from Divine Right, the Jim Lee comic around the same time, The Adventures of Max Faraday, where they go, in the first issue, they go to I don't know if it's a Kinko's or if it's an internet cafe. I think it's an internet cafe, but there's a big shootout in there. But I've never been to an internet cafe. We didn't have them around here when I was at this time, but I guess they existed in big cities for a long time, and I'm not sure if they still do. But that's pretty much all I got. This one is not as strong as the Green Lantern Silver Surfer, but I thought it was a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to echo what you guys have already said. I definitely like the art. Scott McDaniel is doing a great job here. I've already kind of complained a little bit about how difficult it was to kind of understand what was going on. This is a pretty complicated plot when you start to look at it. You got to be somebody that's probably enjoys a little bit of science fiction, and most comic book readers are. But man, when you start talking about somebody growing a neural net in their head, and it's like two or three parts where we were like watching a Dharma Initiative video where they were taking us back to show us what was going on with the development of this neural net. So you had a good understanding as to what in the world this thing was and why it was such a problem. It's unique. That's a unique plot for Two-Face to go, okay, well, me and this guy are teaming, but I'm actually killing this guy in the end, and I'm going to sell what he has in his head, which is pretty cool, I think. That's all right. It's just getting there and understanding what in the world is going on is a bit of a chore, and trying to explain it to somebody else is even worse. So, yeah, lucky me, I do a podcast. Then we have Marty Tollin. I already made a note. He's wanting to be the next Tarantino. I want to read his quotes here as he continues to get thrown around by these guys, if I can find them. The poor victims of Hyde, by the way, just a vile villain. There's 2 points in this book where he is saying he's going to rape somebody. And I know that definitely Dean has had conversations on here before talking about how like that seemed to be for some reason a way of getting villains over, was to just make him what's more villainy than somebody
as despicable as possible.
Exactly. And it wasn't a good look. When you look back at it now, it looks horrible. So
like the way DC in the 2000s decided that every villain was a cannibal.
Yeah.
He's going to eat somebody.
Yeah, Marty Tollin. I just want to make movies.
Like a young Mark Radulich.
I just want to make movies. I really just like Disney movies. That was another thing. Like they made this. If you piece together what this guy said,
that's character development, man. He admired and idolized Tarantino's absurd obsession with violence, and then faced with actual ugly violence, he decided that he wants to put something different out into the world.
Yes, yeah. He just likes Disney movies. All right. I'm picking my panel, and let's see. I'm going to go with the final panel, I think, is what I have. Oh, no, not the final one. It's the one that after they had beaten both the villains, where they both say, then rest in peace at the end, which nobody's dead, but okay.
Last of Harvey Dent.
That was the last. Yeah, that's true. He says was simply the last of Harvey Dent. Both of them said, then rest in peace. Harvey's incapacitated. He's not going anywhere. And Hyde has got the syringe sticking out of his neck. But you got Batman and Daredevil standing shoulder to shoulder with Marty Tollin in the background with his big wide eyes. So there you go. That's my panel. Chris, I'll throw it to you here. What's yours out of this book?
I think it's on page. Yeah, it is. Page 8, the last panel. Just a small circular panel of Daredevil looking super devious and looking like a devil. There's another close-up of Daredevil later that's not as good, but I did notice that McDaniel snuck a little cross into his forehead, sort of, like in the furrowing of his brow, sort of.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Intentional.
Yeah.
But yeah, mine is the devious-looking Daredevil on page 8.
Okay. All right, Evan, what do you got?
I'm going to have to go with, I do not know what page number it is, but it'll be easier for you guys to find. Right before one of those Dharma Initiative videos where Daredevil wins the game of chicken and the Batmobile swerves around him.
Oh, like you talked about how Batman is kind of a little bit more, he's a little bit, what was the word he used?
Stern.
Yeah, like he's trying to make Daredevil believe that he's going to run him down, and he clearly doesn't. But it seemed like it was not out of character, but yeah, a lot more harsh than what we normally would see out of Batman. All right, all good picks. That ends our discussion there on Daredevil Batman.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.